Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number one in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Oh boy, listen to that. It's funny, when I listen to that, I don't connect it in my head with Goonies 2 anymore. I connect it, I play Goonies 2 and connect it with this show. And that is because we are on the 207th episode of Tiger Claw Radio. What's going on, everyone? I am your host, Critical Failure, also known as the curator of the Family Collection. And speaking of the Family Collection, we've got quite a bit of podcasting for you today. So let's jump right in and not waste a second of time. The track's called Human Hands, and that's from Robot Science off their album Doodads. Now, I believe that album is still available for free. For the longest time, it was a free album. It's special to me because I listened to that album when I was on vacation. I took my family down to Hutchinson Island, which is a beach in Florida. There's a beach there. We went to, what's the name of the place? New Smyrna, I guess. Down in Florida, down below, like maybe, I don't know, 100 miles south of Disney World. So quite a ways down there. And it was my favorite beach vacation I think I've ever taken. And I remember my family being in our hotel room, and I got sent out to the grocery store for something simple. I don't know what it was. I can't remember. But I remember driving up and down the coast at night with that song blasting, and it was a good time. It's my favorite vacation ever. If you go to my channel on YouTube, there is still to this day a video of the little arcade that was at the very bottom of the bottom floor of the hotel we were in. A really, really modest arcade. Had a Mortal Kombat cabinet in it. It had Metal Slug and a couple of others. I played Metal Slug, played some Mortal Kombat 2. I think it was Mortal Kombat 2. I remember Metal Slug more than anything else, but the video's still up. You can watch it. That was my favorite vacation ever. So this album, Doodads, from Robot Science, is kind of a special album in that way. All right. So now that we've had our time, we've had our song time, we've had our songs. Now we're gonna move right along. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. I'm sorry, I really am. Monday morning, pulling out. Getting ready to drive to work and do some TCR van casting. What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Critical Failure. Feeling good. Coming off of last week being the longest regular TCR ever. I don't know. This one, I feel like this one might not be that long. Got up early this morning and I got to do something I haven't done in ages, which was play the original Xbox. Which I'm able to do thanks to the work I've been doing on my setup, my game room. Got the original Xbox hooked up. I worked with my capture device this morning, and I got it running. I didn't actually capture any footage, but I forgot how unstable that thing is. It's pretty inconvenient to get working. The last time I used it, I captured a bunch of footage for the Suikoden video that I was working on that eventually got canceled. And it's rough to work with, man. There's a lot of poking at this box, this big bulky set-top box, trying to figure out why it's not running. But it does work. That's the thing, because this is equipment that's years old now, and I can still get it running, which is great. So I played Midway Arcade Classics for the original Xbox, which is pretty good. I mean, it's a fun game. It's basically like my disc that has Smash TV on it for the original Xbox. Smash TV and a bunch of games I'm never going to play. It's got, I mean, amongst other things, you're looking at Paperboy, Gauntlet, the arcade game, Spy Hunter, the arcade game, Super Sprint, Defender, a few others. The Spy Hunter arcade game, I gotta say, is probably the most playable I've seen Spy Hunter. Usually ports of the arcade version of Spy Hunter are very, very bad because it was a steering wheel game, a steering wheel with a physical acceleration pedal and a gear shifter. But using the analog sticks mitigates some of those problems. I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of the Spy Hunter arcade game, really. Too easy to... I mean, as rough as it is on the NES, it's a million times easier to wreck on the arcade version. I don't know, I just think that the NES port is the definitive version of Spy Hunter. But regardless, I gave it a spin this morning. Played some of the Spy Hunter, played some Smash TV, and that was great. I wanted to sit down with that Magic the Gathering game I got from Hemrock ages ago. Hemrock sent me this Magic the Gathering Battlegrounds, something like that. And I got that upstairs and got it in my office, and I haven't had a chance to sit down with it yet. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be video worthy, maybe? I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. This morning was one of a handful of times I really got to sit down with my consoles and enjoy the fruits of my labor, which is an important part of retro game collecting, or any kind of game collecting, is to really dig in and make it worth it. Get some time in those games. Speaking of getting time in games, later last week, I don't know, maybe 4 days ago or so, my kids were playing outside, and I got some time on the Wii, which is pretty rare for me to play the Wii without the children present, because whenever it's like hooked up to the family room TV. So whenever I have it on, the kids are like, "Dad, is that something I can play too? How about we play something I can play too? How about we play something just I can play? How about you go do something else, Dad?" But they were outside, so I got to dig into the original Phantasy Star, and I sat down with that for about 45 minutes. My first real session of Phantasy Star. And I started grinding away, fighting the monsters, talking to people, checking stuff out. It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool indeed. It's a little different than I thought it would be. I thought the entire thing was going to be first-person dungeon crawling. I don't know why I got that impression, but I did a lot of walking around town and talking to people in the traditional RPG sense, and walking around outside on a top-down world map, fighting monsters that way. I don't know. I know it does have first-person dungeon crawling elements in it, but we'll see. I've yet to get that far. 45 minutes in the original Phantasy Star, from what I hear, is not a lot of time. It's not, I mean, you read everything in the intro, you wander around town, you fight a few guys outside, and that's about it. That's your 45 minutes. Played it enough to know that you start very, very weak in that game. Like, I'm getting my butt kicked by the standard first level monsters. That's a pretty tough pill to swallow. But on the other hand, I mean, that they figured out a way to give it some honest-to-goodness difficulty, or the best way they can anyway. I mean, you can make all sorts of arguments about difficulty, whether it be artificial or not. But I'll say this, as far as deep analysis is concerned, setting all that aside, I had a good time with it. Sounds good, it looks good, even though it's old, it's Master System. The later installments of Phantasy Star look a lot better. It still looks good, and I was digging it. That's really been it. All right. In light of how long I went on last week, I know I'm going to have more to talk about as the week goes on, so I'm going to go ahead and call that it for Monday. I'll see you guys back in the comfortable Panzer Studios. Back in Panzer Studios, we're going to fast forward to Monday afternoon. Yes, and so here we are, leaving work Monday afternoon. Hang on a second. I'm in a busier part of town than normal, so driving is a little more complicated than it is most days. So let's talk about the video games. One thing I'm noticing since I re-entered the market and became a retro collector, not just a gamer, but a retro gamer collector of games. Stuff's happening fast, so I started writing stuff down, little bullet points, so I could go over them. There was an auction that I was following for a Sega Master System game, R-Type. R-Type turned up as a Sega Master System game. I didn't know that. And I've never owned an R-Type game before. I know that's like an old, beloved series, but I always played Gradius. And I never played, I don't know if I played it before or not, but I know I've never owned an R-Type game. So this showed up as an auction, and the guy was pennying it out. So it started at nothing. 1 penny plus shipping, which is about, 2 1/4, something like that. And I followed it for a few days. Now, whenever you start with a penny auction, it's pretty common knowledge that it's going to increase quite a bit. You can't see, you know what I mean? It's going to go, I mean, you better know the market if you want to know, you know what I'm saying? So, a game for the Master System, which I'm pretty sure had some value, I bidding on it at that point was really, the only real purpose of bidding on it at that point was to make sure that it would show up in my list of auctions I had bid on. That was the purpose. And that ended today. That auction closed at $19. Which is, it sounds like a lot for a Sega Master System game, but I'm looking up R-Type in particular for the Master System, and it's going for upper 40s, 50s or more if you want to complete. This is a loose cart. So what are you gonna do? I was willing to throw down $9 for it. That was my bid. So I missed out on R-Type, but that was, as it turns out, a game I didn't quite have the metal for at this point. I'm just trying to pick up some of the peripheral options, some of those little low cost outlying games for the Master System. That's really where I'm at this point. So I'm gonna stick with my list of my target list. I'm gonna get Altered Beast for the Master System, which I'm looking forward to. Altered Beast and Double Dragon, both very attainable games. Neither one too expensive. In fact, I'll probably start with Altered Beast Friday when I get allowance again, because I guess it's been a while since I've gone over this. I get allowance, just like an 8-year-old, just like a 10-year-old going out there mowing the lawns and whatnot. I get a $10 a week allowance. And that's the way to do it, because then I can buy whatever I want. As long as as long as I save up enough allowance for it, I know that I'm not, spending my kids' food money. That's the way you manage it. Right? So on Friday, when the spending money comes in, when the pocket money comes in, the money I know I can burn safely, I'm probably going to start by ordering Altered Beast. Let's get a copy of that first game that's on my list, my goals. Start crossing stuff off. I want to play Altered Beast. I looked it up a bit on the Genesis to see what that goes for, because I'm aware that from looking at footage, the Genesis version is just going to be far and away the better game. Yeah, I'm probably going to get a reproduction cart. I've played Altered Beast before. I know what I'm in for. I just haven't played it on the Master System. It was never much Altered Beast is one of these things, as I'm sure, you want to know about this game, you talk to the Gaming Beast. Altered Beast is his game. It's really like, it was a sign of the times. It was when the early 16-bit days, when they were just making this huge graphic leap forward. That's what Altered Beast was. It was a sign of. I'm trying to avoid the use of the word technical demo, but it was kind of one of those things. It was like, you look at it and it had to have been built to show off just like exactly what kind of sprites you could use in a 16-bit game. So to see Altered Beast on the Sega Master System was just a complete paradox that I'm so looking forward to owning. And I can't. I'm not gonna touch the ROM or anything. I'm leaving it alone. I've looked at it in the past. That's how I know what it looks like. But I'm not even looking up footage of this thing, because I can't wait to dig in and see how much it misses the mark. As for the Genesis version, apparently you can buy a reproduction cart for about $4. And after I've experienced it on the Master System, I'll probably want to own it on the Genesis as well, just so I can have the legit experience, if you will, or the full 16-bit experience. I guess there's not a whole lot about a reproduction cart that you could say is legit, but that's Altered Beast. What else is going on in my collection scavenging and researching? I'm developing an interest, albeit possibly a passing interest, in the TurboGrafx 16. TurboGrafx 16 is one of the last systems I've never owned or played. You know, there's plenty of things out there that I never owned, but I know about, right? For example, the Sega CD. I've never owned a Sega CD, but my buddy had one, and I got to play it like once. I went over to his house a couple of times. Distinctly, I remember him playing Popful Mail. That was the Sega CD game that I remember. But that's enough. I got to play it once. I've seen it work, right? I've never seen a TurboGrafx 16 up and running. Never. I remember seeing the cards, the loose games. We had a pawn shop in my town. Actually, I remember there was one city block that at one time, years ago, there was 3 pawn shops in the city block. So that was how I used to do it back in the day. I would walk this strip, and each one of them had different like old Nintendo games and stuff. And this one CD pawn shop, there was like, I mean, you talk about a CD pawn shop. They had the adult videos just out there so everybody could see them. There was clearly the firearms that they kept behind the counter were like in plain sight. I'm not talking about firearms for sale. I'm talking about firearms that were there for protection of the shopkeepers. They were just like sitting there. You would think of a place like that as having the courtesy of putting the pistol, like, you know, out where you couldn't see it, I guess. I don't know. I guess these guys thought if we just kept them out there, they would be like a deterrent. Or hey, maybe they were for sale and I didn't know because I didn't think to ask when I was a kid. But whatever, this was the store I went to. They had TurboGrafx 16 games under the glass once, 20 years ago. That's the only time I can think of ever really seeing TurboGrafx 16 games. I mean, I vaguely remember seeing the logo at Toys R Us as a kid, so I must have seen the games like new under the glass there, but I don't know. That idea of being one of the last new experiences interests me. So I looked them up, and yeah, they're a bit. You gotta have at least $100 if you're gonna order it, right? So there's that. The games are pricey too, so it's not just the initial investment, which is one of the things that worries me. Supposedly, I remember hearing a long time ago, I think this might have even been on the Retro Rejects, there was one guy on there who was like the authority on shmups, and I remember him saying the TurboGrafx 16 was like the system for shmups. And I don't know if that's true or not, because I don't know a whole heck of a lot about the library, but I don't know. I'm looking into the TurboGrafx 16. I'm worried that I would plunk down the money today, it would show up tomorrow, and then I'd find out all of the desirable games are extraordinarily expensive. I mean, I found out you could get, like, I don't know, golf or baseball or whatever for cheap, but if the desirable games are you know, 50 plus, then I don't know, maybe it's not for me. I know it has Blanc's Adventure. That's one thing I know about the TurboGrafx 16. So I'm researching it. I don't know. That's a thing. That's one. The only other real system I can think of like that interests me, that like is something I've never tried or owned, is the ColecoVision. I wanted a ColecoVision very badly in like 2010, 2011. I even like had a spot on my shelf that was like, when I get the money, this is where the Coleco's going. And I never it's not just that I never pulled the trigger, it just kind of faded away. I think I was watching, I think at that time I was going through the back catalog of Vintage Video Game Geek, who talked about Coleco. And I remember Gamester81 getting a hold of his Coleco, or at least making a video about his Coleco right around that time. And yeah, that kind of resurfaced. I'd like to get a ColecoVision someday too, but that's, I don't know. Both of those systems are a pretty penny, so that's quite a ways away. Not just a pretty penny, but also space is at a premium. When you start talking about getting a system, it's a space investment, which is a big deal with me. Space is very, very limited, you know. So you know what is. I did come out on top, and I ordered a few games that are actually on their way. I want to do unboxing some of these games. But the listenership here, I think, is slim enough. I can just go ahead and spoil it, and we'll see what happens. I ordered Devil May Cry 3 for the PS2. Devil May Cry is a series I always wanted to try, but it's like that series peaked and was popular and then went away. All without me ever playing any of those games even once. Shintai, who I haven't talked to in forever and a day. Good old Shintai. I remember was like the authority on Dead or Alive. Not Dead or Alive, Devil May Cry. And he said, I seem to remember him telling me there was one that was no good. And it might be the one that I ordered, number 3. But this was one of those where it was like, I was just putting down the penny on eBay so that it would show up in my bids, because my watch list is a mess. And that ended up being enough. So all I had to do was pay for the shipping, which was like $2. And there you go, Devil May Cry 3, complete in box, PS2. I'll take it. If it ends up being the black sheep of the series, that's fine. But that's cool, man. That's one of those things I've wanted to do. And now I'm going to do it. And that's great. So that's going to show up. I also came out on top with Jet Force Gemini, which is for the Nintendo 64. I'm looking forward to that showing up. I got that. I think it was my older brother. I can't remember if it was my older brother or my mom that bought that for me. It might have been my older brother. But I had that complete in box, many, many years ago. And I remember playing it, playing the multiplayer. The multiplayer was very good on that game. And I'm looking forward to having it again. It's funny, when you talk about shooting, not just shooting, when you talk about multiplayer games on the Nintendo 64, usually what I remember as being popular was GoldenEye. But it wasn't GoldenEye for me. For me, it was Jet Force Gemini. Jet Force Gemini was miles above GoldenEye, if you ask me. Miles above it in the multiplayer shooting. Even though it was third person and not first person, the environments were better. I mean, it was great. At least that's how I remember it. And you know what memory can do to things. So I'm interested to load it back up and see how it goes. And while we're on the subject, I also ordered a copy of Perfect Dark, which I've never played. So those 3 games, Perfect Dark, Devil May Cry 3, and Jet Force Gemini are all on the way. As well as a couple Yu-Gi-Oh games for the Game Boy, which is ridiculous that I'm still buying those. But there's so many Yu-Gi-Oh games on the Game Boy Advance. There's so many of them. I thought I had them all. When I started collecting, I looked them up and I was like, oh, there's a couple more. So the same thing happened. Now I'll throw the penny down. We'll see if anybody bids. Do that first opening bid. And 2 of them I ended up winning. So I think that's going to be every single one except for one. I don't know. We'll see. That's the dumbest thing in the world. I find it easier to buy dumb Game Boy Advance purchases because they go in this big Ziploc bag, and it's not such a big deal. It's not like a space issue with those. But if I play a trading card game, it's not going to be that. It's going to be Duel Masters. I'm looking forward to bedtime tonight. I thought I was going to play my Game Boy Advance like in the car or something. Like because I show up to work early and I'd play in the car for a few minutes before I went into the building. But I don't know. I feel weird doing that. I think my plan instead is just a few minutes before bed. But that's a dangerous game. That's something I'd been avoiding. It's a dangerous game to play before bed because if you get, if you cross that precipice and find a game that really sticks with you, you end up staying up late nights. And I can't really afford to do that because I'm getting up so early, on a daily basis. I mean, I'm up routinely at 5 o'clock. Set my alarm for 4:50 and 5 o'clock I'm already up, got the coffee brewing. And that's my day. So, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe I'll just have to spend one of my mornings playing it, and that's where I'll have to find the time. So that's all the last like week of looking around. That's quite a bit of sitting on the can looking at the eBay app and just reading things, just throwing fish hooks out there and hoping I catch something. I got a couple pending auctions that I'm gonna see how I do later tonight. Gran Turismo 2 complete in box, black label, PS1. That's a game that's like it seemed those Gran Turismo games, the early ones, just seem to show up everywhere. They seem like, I can't think of the word, but like the cannon fodder kind of games. Like the games, like if I held out long enough, I could probably find it in a thrift store. Hell, I have the arcade, the one of the 2 discs, like the arcade version disc. I have that already, and the reason I have it is because I made a thrift store purchase, and that was stuck in there also, like along with whatever it was I was buying. But I kind of want to have it because I remember being super into Gran Turismo 1 with my older brother, and Gran Turismo 2 being desirable and not having it. And that's the reason I want it. Because I'm getting older and it's time to start fulfilling some of those things that I wanted out of life. Even if they're silly, even if it's a game like get Gran Turismo 2, play it for a little while and then realize it's not really worth, whatever. But then again, I've got Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec on the PS2, and that's a no, not 3, 4. Gran Turismo 4 on the PS2, and that's a game that's deprecated as hell, and I enjoy it. I think that's a great purchase. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Maybe that's a waste. But that hasn't ended yet. I kind of feel like nobody's gonna bid on that because it's Gran Turismo. What are you gonna do? That's one, and then the last one I have that Fishhook is still out there is Narc for the NES, which I'm sure somebody else is going to bid on, because you start talking about NES stuff, and that's where you start having to worry about snipers. It's like whatever your true max bid is, that better be laid down on that game, because somebody's going to swoop in, when there's 2 seconds left, and drop a bid that you're not going to have time to consider if you want to pay more or not. So it's got to be your true max. And my true max for Narc for the NES is about $5. So even that right now I think is a lot, because I think I've ordered, for me, a ton of stuff. So we'll see. If I get Narc, it'll be great. If I don't, that's also fine. I feel like my NES collection is pretty close to complete. Like complete as in like all the games that I would like to own, I actually own. A few holes, but when I got my hands on a copy of Spy Hunter, that was really when I was able to put that to rest. That's when I started to feel like I've got what I really wanted to have. Now it's just like, if something strikes my fancy, it'd be nice. There's no NES games left that I would stress about, that I would really miss if I didn't have it. I think the most desirable NES games for me are repros. Like Zelda Outlands is really good. I'd like to own that. Metal Storm, I guess, counts. I'd like to own Metal Storm. I considered buying that high dollar at one point, but I don't know. That seems like a waste now. I've never been... I don't buy games as trophies. That's a practice I don't buy into. I have a couple of trophy games, but I didn't get them, at big money. I'm not in a position where I can really consider that as a real thing. Although thinking about it now, I would pose this question. Suppose if things were different for me financially and I had more money to play with than, say, $10 a week, right? I have an appropriate amount to play with as a man with a wife and children. But if I was single, would I look at things differently? So when I think of it that way, I understand how some of these guys out there on YouTube are like, hey man, look at the stuff I got for $100. I get that now, but for me, no. I'm not doing that. If I had a bunch of funds like that available to me, then maybe I would get back into the Sega Saturn. Because that was a door that slammed shut on my fingers twice. Was the Sega Saturn. And in my research, in looking at what you could order and for how much, I looked at the Saturn again. Because I remember, listen, Jerry Terrifying was telling me all about this. He didn't get his Saturn collection by and large, out in the wild. I mean, he did a lot, but his systems, he told me, bid low and bid often. And he got a lot of systems that way. Actually, now that I think of it, he used to tell Vax Video stories. So yeah, he probably did get most of his collection out in the wild. But I remember him specifically saying, bid low, bid often. And he got a lot of his many Saturns that way. So that means at least as of 2010, it's possible. So I don't know. I looked around. I saw a working Saturn box, just the box, for $50. And that's for a system, that's doable. That's doable. But if you're only buying to play, then that would have to be like, all right, what am I buying this system to play? And there's good games in the Saturn, but I would have to come up with a checklist, just like I have now with Tiny Tank and Altered Beast and Double Dragon. I would have to have a checklist for the Sega Saturn, and I thought about it. And my checklist for the Sega Saturn would be really expensive, man. It really would be. It would be Tomb Raider 1, because that's, one of my all-time favorite games. It would be Resident Evil on the Saturn, because that's a piece of history right there. Those are the two big ones. Those are the two most desirable Saturn games for me. I don't know. That's Sega Saturn. So this is something I'm noticing about being about not just being a collector, but looking into collecting again. It's like all of this stuff is just rushing back so fast that I find it hard to stay focused on specific points, specific things. That's why I think it's good to write a list of goals. Most of the stuff that I ordered or bids I put out on before I wrote that list of desired games. And I just had to wait for them to get resolved. And now come Friday, I'll be able to start crossing things off. It's a bummer I'm going to be busy tonight. I'm looking forward to going home and playing some games. I want to cuddle up in bed and play my Game Boy Advance SP. But I can't, because I got stuff to do. Well, alright, we're 24 minutes in. I'm going to try and keep this from turning into the same thing that happened last week, where we go 2 hours in. So let's go back to the Panzer Studios. Nice and comfy in Panzer Studios. Let's just take a second here. This is where I like to remind everybody. This is a Patreon-funded program, and I like to take a second to thank the folks who are keeping us alive so very much. If you want to support the show, you can head over to the Tiger Claw TV Patreon page. These guys, as a small token of my appreciation, I make sure they get a copy of the show as soon as it's done. It's either Friday or Saturday, and then everyone else gets the show on Monday, on the normal release day. Also, I like to thank them personally when I can. They are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, Six Health of Fury, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys very, very much. All right, let's go back to the album Doodads from Robot Science. We'll hear one more track, then we're going to go back to the Vancast. I know I've played that on the air many of times. That's the lead-off track entitled "You Are a Person." And once again, nighttime in Florida on the east coast of Hutchinson Island, just cruising the coast in an SUV with nothing but car seats in the back. Just, oh man, what a memory. All right, guys, let's go back to the Vancast. You know what? I'm going to risk going long again. I said I wasn't going to do any more Vancasting this week, but something happened this morning I wanted to discuss. I got up real early. 5 o'clock in the morning, I was upstairs. I was rigging up the coffee pot, got that brewing, sat down on my computer, did a real quick edit of my Wednesday afternoon pickups video, the one I did where I got the Sega Genesis, the Sega 3. But that took 5 minutes to edit, so it was probably 5:15, and I sat down on the carpet to play my Sega Master System. A nice relaxing game before work, just play for a few minutes. So what did I play on the Sega Master System? Well, I decided to play Great Baseball. I wanted to play one of the new games that I bought recently, and I play Hang On with my son. We take turns and do high score challenges. But Great Baseball, I kind of only tested it when I got it. I played it for probably 15 minutes when I first got it, and that was it. So I put that thing in, and I played through a 9-inning game. I don't know what it is about these old games where you pick out a team, and the teams are but they're not licensed by Major League Baseball, so the teams are just symbols or whatever. Well, this one's got abbreviated cities. So I played Baltimore versus New York. I was playing as Baltimore, playing New York. American League games. They have the AL and the NL. So I assume that's supposed to be well, we're not licensed, but we're going to get close. And I got crushed. I got annihilated. I think the final score was either 9-0 or... No, I got 1. It was either 9-1 or 10-1. Did I get 1? I can't remember. Yes, I did, because I got a homer. All right, so let's talk about Great Baseball for a minute. First of all, it should be called Pretty Good Baseball. Because it's not bad. It really isn't, but it's rough. Downstairs in my basement, I have a copy of Bases Loaded 2 and RBI Baseball on the NES. I've also got baseball on the Famicom, which is the equivalent of the black box copy of Nintendo Baseball. So I got a few good baseball games, a few good 8-bit baseball games to pick from. So that's kind of in my head what I compared this to, because it's Sega Master System. That was what its competition was on the market. First of all, the fielding in the game is all automatic, right? If you're if you're pitching, right, and the batter hits a pop fly, the computer takes over and makes the catch. So when I was testing it the other day, I was like, oh, this is great. One of the things I hate about playing baseball games, especially retro baseball games, is when you don't know how the fielding works yet. So they hit a pop fly, and you never catch them, because you got to line it up just right. There's certain baseball games that do that very poorly, where ball goes up, and there's no mark on the ground. You don't quite know where to stand, and you miss the pop flies, right? In any given baseball game, especially Major League Baseball, those are supposed to be the easy ones, right? And then conversely, when you're batting, if you hit the pop fly, then the PC is going to catch it every time. So it creates a difficulty slant that makes it unfairly hard. This is a game that takes care of that. There's no fielding. All right, so pop flies are okay. But after playing a 9-inning game, when I started to get the feel of it more, I started to wish I had a little bit more control. I don't know, so it's like a give and take kind of thing. But here was the kicker. Batting, all right? In most baseball games, when you step up to the plate, you line your batter up, right? Before the pitch is thrown, most games you can press up, down, left, right. You can see your batter kind of sliding along the plate to get in a position to where you think the ball is going to be. In great baseball, for the Sega Master System, you only go left and right. You don't go up and down, right? So there's one less dimension. There's no y-axis when you're trying to line your batter up. So that leads me to believe it should be easier to line up then, right? If you only have to guess if it's going to be, far or tight, it should be easier. That's one less thing you have to figure into the equation when you're, trying to guess where the ball's going to go. But man, I couldn't get a piece of anything. I can still see when I watch the pitches, it will clearly bend upwards and downwards still. So I don't know. I had a hard time. I'm willing to play it again. I sat through 9 innings of great baseball on the Sega Master System. And at the end of it, I was very confused. It's not the worst baseball game I've ever played, but it's certainly not the best. The best retro baseball game, for my money, is Bo Jackson's 2-in-1 football and baseball for the Game Boy. The baseball game on that, the baseball half, is very, very good. It's the only baseball game to date I can think of where when you start the game, you get to choose how many innings it's going to be. That's a big problem with baseball video games. What if 3 innings. 3 innings of video game baseball is plenty, right? And that's the only game I know of where I can set a 3-inning game. 9 innings is a lot. That's a lot of baseball in a video game. You got to really be invested to slag through 9 innings of video game baseball. But that was my experience with the Sega Master System this morning. I think when it was all over, more than anything else, I wished I had just played Rampage or Bonanza Brothers or something. But that's okay. I still like it. It's a game that I had some fun with, despite getting totally annihilated. On the other hand, maybe it's a good thing to get, if you pick up a brand new game and get crushed right out of the gate, and then you have this slow build where you get better. Maybe it's the best game ever. Maybe it's the best Sega Master System game you can buy. Or maybe not. Let's go back to Panzer Studios, guys.
Nice and comfy in Panzer Studios. I got 3 packages sitting here waiting to be opened, and I want to get to them. So let's do one more shot from the Vancast, and then we'll answer your emails. You guys are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Check us out at thenextround.net. We're on VidMe. I have a VidMe channel I make sure and put every episode up on. You can head over to the Podomatic page so you can subscribe to the RSS feed. Put me on your favorite podcatcher. Get me on iTunes. All that comes from the Podomatic page. Or you can check out, the archive. Our listing in archive.org. I've got hundreds of hours of podcasting. Every saved episode of the show ever. There's only a handful that didn't get saved. Is there that's available for you guys to listen to. All right, let's return to the Vancast.
It's Friday. You know what? I'm going to do another one anyway because I can see myself being too busy to finish the show tonight. Hang on. You coming, buddy? It is early. I'm back to the early shift again. So it is 6:28, which is typically, these days on a regular shift for me. I like to get out earlier than this if I can. But it is what it is. What are you going to do, right? I got up early this morning, and I hooked up my Nintendo 64. Now, I haven't tried to fire up the Nintendo 64 in a long time. It's been a few years now. There's a lot I don't know about that system. I haven't... I've played a few games in the Nintendo 64 library, but Nintendo 64 to me has always been, this is the machine that runs Super Mario 64, and that's what it was great for. Hang on one second, let me just, yeah, okay, good. Defroster's on? Good. And that's what it was great for. It was the machine that played that played Super Mario 64. There are some other okay games on it, but that was the standout.
Now, I have a little collection of Nintendo 64 games, but that one is not among them. So, it didn't get much play for many years. Got some. My son liked Diddy Kong Racing. I got that at the thrift store for like 99 cents, a few years back. That was like his first ever favorite game. Before Minecraft, before Terraria, which are his favorites now. That was his first favorite game. And you know what I think it was primarily? He was so little. He was probably like 2 at the time. And when you turn on Diddy Kong Racing, the first thing you see is the Rareware logo, and in the background of the Rareware logo is children laughing. That's the audio that they play on the opening splash screen for Diddy Kong Racing. It's children laughing. And as a 2-year-old, I remember him jumping up and down and screaming and smiling. I don't know. It was one of those things that just triggered like a happy place. It was pretty neat to see, actually. As far as playing the game, he was so little. He would just kind of hold the controller and make the cart push forward a little bit on the map screen if he could. But it was something he dug, and we would sit together and we would mess with it. So those were good times. Well, this morning, fast forward to several years later. He's just turning 8 now. This morning, I hooked up the Nintendo 64 for the first time in a very long time. I had to order a new AV cable to get it hooked up. So I finally got it hooked up. And it wouldn't start at first, right? I was putting the games in, and I was turning it on, and no picture was being sent to the TV. I didn't know that that's what happened when games failed to start on the 64. Right, on the traditional 8-bit Nintendo, if you try and start, a game and it doesn't work, you at least see the screen light up. It'll give you some sort of blinking screen, or perhaps like a flashing color or something like that. You'll know that the Nintendo is sending an input somehow, or there's some sort of picture being sent. This thing it was sending nothing. So. I thought there was something wrong with my system. Like, I thought that it wasn't able to send a picture, or maybe the cable that I bought was faulty or something like that. I don't know. But I freaked out, and it was a solid 15 minutes of messing with stuff before I realized it was just my dirty old cartridges. They weren't starting, on the first try. But I got it up and running, and I played Perfect Dark for the first time ever this morning. Ever. Perfect Dark, if you're not familiar, I'm sure you guys are, but humor me. It requires the RAM expansion pack in the front of the Nintendo 64. And I don't have that. So I knew that going in, but I was like, we'll just put it in and fire it up. I'm curious. I've got to see what happens. This is one of those games that was, it went down as a classic, and I never tried it even back in the day, so I fired it up for the first time. As it turns out, without the RAM expansion, it will read that on the title screen. You can see it says like expansion not found, and it boots into a special mode. So the game is playable, but it lets you play the multiplayer mode and like a couple of small single player challenges. So you're looking at like a bot match against one bot in a small arena. But it's functional and it works and it looks good. So I was able to actually play the game, so to speak. I didn't have access to the story mode because that's where you really need that additional RAM and whatnot, but I got to get familiar with the guns a little bit and just run around and kind of shoot and see what it was like. I got to be honest, with first-person shooters, I'm such a PC guy. I've been such a PC guy for so long. When I pick up the controller and I try and play a first-person shooter, there's always problems. This was remarkably playable because most of what was happening took place on a single plane. Like, there was ramps up and down, so the vertical plane did exist, but not to the extent you would see in like Halo or something like that. So it created like a nice middle ground for me to get used to it.
Hang on a second. There we go. So that was Perfect Dark this morning. First Nintendo 64 game I played in a long time. Jet Force Gemini is still coming in the mail. That should be here. I don't know when that's going to be here. I was honestly expecting when I came home from work today to see a bunch of games. And I got home and there was nothing there. Well, now it's Friday. So I probably won't shoot another video until after TCR is done. So what I'm expecting now is Monday will come. I'll post TCR, and then my first midweek video, probably Tuesday, I'll have like several packages to open. That's my guess. We'll see. But I had an amazing experience with the Nintendo 64 this morning. It was amazing. It reopened the Nintendo 64 as a viable platform to me, because there's a lot of games that would be good that I just written off. You know what I really want to get? I want to get Mischief Makers. You guys familiar with this game? Mischief Makers was a game that my friend, growing up, was a big fan of. And it looked cool, but I kind of... I didn't write it off, per se, but there was just other things for me to be interested in, right? When Mischief Makers came out, it was... Nintendo 64 came out in 1996. I don't know when exactly that game came out in the lifespan, so I'm thinking 97, maybe 98 latest. I'll have to look this up. But what was I doing in 1997 and 1998? I think I was already like a massive PC guy at that time. Let's see. Shortly after that was when I got into Quake, right? My older brother bought his high-end, or at the time, high-end PC, probably 1998. And I got a hold of Quake, and we were playing it on the GameSpy arcade, using like AOL and NetZero and stuff. And once we found Quake, that was all we were doing. No, you know what it was? I didn't have a Nintendo 64 at that time. My friend had one, and so I would only play it in these little spoon-fed sessions. And I'm pretty sure every time I played Nintendo 64, I was only interested in playing Mario 64, because that game was such a groundbreaking game changer. That was what I wanted to play. At least that's how I remember it. Honestly, I'll have to talk to my friend and see. But I know Mischief Makers is like a cult hit now. It's not the most expensive game in the world, but it's not cheap either. I'm thinking... I've been stalking it for a little while, and it's looking like you know, $15-20 bucks. But it looks like, you know, it'd be sweet. Looks like a nice side-scrolling game. You know what it reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of Tomba a little bit, in that it would be like a side-scrolling game amidst a market flooded with 3D. But we'll see. I mean, it's a title I've known about forever, but at the same time, it's a title I know nothing about. So Mischief Makers is on my radar now, and then we'll see if I can make that happen. This is a stark contrast between yesterday, when I woke up and played great baseball on the Master System, and I got pounded so hard. But what was amazing about that was that stuck in my head all day. I was thinking about taking that shellacking in great baseball all day. So I want to crack that open. What I want to do is play. I was playing Baltimore against New York, and I want to play it again, but this time pick New York. See if that makes any difference. Because one thing I noticed was that they played. The opposing team got like 6 home runs in that game. And I wonder if it was like the 1988 Yankees were very, very good or something. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. It could have just been, you know, everything's random and the computer just gets a lot of home runs because it was 1988 and that's how software worked. But I know the teams are different, because when you go to select your pitcher, pitchers have different stats. And you got like a bullpen of maybe 3-4 pitchers tops. I think it's only 3. And the numbers and what's available are different depending on what team you pick. Hang on a second, let me adjust my... It was cold this morning, so when I turned the heater on in the car, I think I might have overdone it a bit.
So that's it. I'm getting ready to head to work. It's Friday, and I just want to go home and play video games. And my son's birthday is this weekend, so I know it's even when I'm done with work today, it's not going to happen. It's going to be so busy. We're taking my son to Chuck E. Cheese, which is he's going to have a ton of fun with. Chuck E. Cheese is kind of stressful for a parent, but I don't think it's as bad as parents make it out to be. It's this weird thing when you talk to other parents about Chuck E. Cheese that's like treated like it's a death trap. It's like, oh, you're going there? Oh man, condolences. Hang in there, buddy. It's not really that bad. We go there, there's some games, we have a good time, it's fun. Well, alright, it is now 6:40, and I'm going to complete my drive to work, and I'll cut this off before it goes too long. I don't want to have another hour and a half mega session, 2-hour mega session like we did last week. Let's go back to the nice and comfortable Panzer Studios.
Back again at Panzer Studios. This is the part of the show where I like to just take advantage of the fact that we are, in fact, a small operation. It's just me here, and it's just you guys there, and that's it. So any comments, questions you have, I do the best I can to stay on top of it, because I don't have a central place where I require the comments to be funneled through, so it's very often that I miss things. Specifically, my apologies to Balzac. I got tipped off that you left an audio comment again that I totally missed, and we're not going to have time for it this week. So next week we're going to get to Balzac's comment, and also my apologies to Alex Swingle for misreading your comments and then snapping at you last week. I thoroughly apologize. Let's go. Let's head over to YouTube, because YouTube is the easiest place for me to get these comments. But I'm finding more and more Friday night. By the time I get to this part, I'm exhausted. So. We're going to start there. Last one was 206. All right, give me a second. Got some from Dumaze, got some from the Gaming Beast, and our good pal, the Retro Kaiser. So Kaiser writes, it's cute hearing about you playing Master System games with your children. My dad used to do the same thing with me, with the exception being that those games were new back in the day. I remember back in the day we had to rent a Master System from the video shop, and it came in its very own carry case, which was a cool looking sort of, which was very cool looking, sort of looked like a skin tight Batman suit, but for a Master System. Hell, my dad still plays games with me, and we got a huge kick when I introduced him to Octodad. Now on to other things that I've forgotten to respond to about your show. I'm not straight edge, but I don't go out of control. I only have a drink of whiskey every once in a while. A Master System game that you must play is Running Battle. Durabka and I did a Shadow Let's Play of that years ago, and love it. Okay. Cheap repros seem to be the way to go with gamers these days. The originals cost a ton on top of spending a ton of dough just trying to buy the original console to play them on. Although, if you can get an original for cheap, go for it. Excuse me. Speaking of Steam shmups, I've been meaning to buy another PC and put a DIY arcade set to run Steam games that'll work with arcade sticks. I shall call it the Kaisercade. And if the Mondoverse was the TV sitcom Seinfeld, who'd be who? I'd expect Durabka to be Jerry and Swingle to be Newman. You would be George, meaning me, and I'd be Kramer, meaning Kaiser. Oh boy, you got some stuff here. Let's start with the Jerry Seinfeld thing and work back, Kaiser. First of all, if we were the cast of if we were the cast of Seinfeld, I would be George, and everyone else in the group would all be Elaine. I don't know, dude. That's it's funny because that's a game that people used to play years ago. In another age. You'd watch the sitcom that everybody would talk about. Hey, which one are you? I'd be Larry David. Nobody would ever see me on camera, but I'd be pulling the strings. Oh, boy. No, Larry David was on camera, actually. You know who Larry David played on the original Seinfeld? He played George Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees. That was, in every episode, Steinbrenner showed up. That was Larry David. You just never saw his face. Alright. What else here? There's another one. Also, I can see why you'd have a hard time getting into esports. Even though it's gaming related, it's still a sport.
Sports are hard to get into. Also, you seem to have forgotten that I am the esports athlete of the group. For shame. My dear Kaiser, how could I forget that you are the esports athlete and a seasoned tournament contender? And for that, you have my respect, good sir. So we got some comments, plural. We got one comment from the Gaming Beast. Looks like it's got some meat to it. Let's dig right in. Gaming Beast writes, I'm screwing this up real bad. Come on. You know, it's funny because this is not the comment. This is me. But I used to, in my head, I'd make fun of people who did this, who had this problem. People would be like, all right. I would see this all the time. There's somebody in particular I'm thinking about, but it's none of us, and I don't want to say his name in case it gets back to him. Cause it's like, all right, guys, I'm going to read a comment now. Let's see it. Okay. Dear show, I like you, show. It is very good. You are good to listen to. It's like, come on. You got to have at least third grade reading. All right, but now here I am, just doing exactly what I used to laugh at people for. Let's start again, Gaming Beast. He writes, I may just get some repro carts myself. All right, I did it. A lot of SNES games I had and loved, Super Metroid, Secret of Mana, etc., are way too expensive nowadays. I don't know if I want to waste money on that. I remember my friend, who was the only one I knew who had a Master System. I remember play Wonder Boy 3 on it, which looked pretty sweet. Maybe a game to check out. I like your MS-DOS comparison, but I feel the MS had a better color palette than the NES. But I may be wrong. Well, oh, I'm sorry. There's more. Question of the Beast. You said you don't have time to play RPGs, which is understandable. Have you thought about playing co-op RPGs like Secret of Mana with your son? I liked it as a kid by myself, and I loved that you could play it together. Might be a way for playing a game through together. You got something there, man. I honestly have never played Secret of Mana, so I really don't know about that game, but I'll have to check it out. I'm not sure. You say like a step back. It says like your MS-DOS comparison. Are you talking about a video I made? I'm not. It's not ringing any bells. I made a couple of PC version videos, but I don't know. What video are you talking about? Because I can't quite remember. I looked up Wonder Boy, and I'm aware that that's one everybody loves. I don't think it's prohibitively expensive either. Like, it's expensive, yes, but it looked like $20, $25, something like that. And that's the thing about Phantasy Star that killed me. If I may quote, paraphrase a quote from Jerry, Jerry once said, if I take this lamp and I sell this lamp for $1,000, it doesn't make it a $1,000 lamp. It makes me a jerk. And that's the way that hence the price of Phantasy Star. Now, I looked at that game at the time, and it was a $100 game. But when I watched the market for a couple weeks, and I actually saw what they sell for, it's more like a $25, $30 game, which is a lot, but that's doable. That's in the realm of reality. Like, look, especially these old school RPGs. Like, it's if you're gonna sink 100 plus hours into a game, hey, $30, man, that's okay. Right? $35, that's all right. That first fantasy, that if you're going to buy that first Phantasy Star for $35, you better stick in it. You better really play that game. Now, I have my Master System in a room. I have it in my office. It's separate from the kids. The children are allowed in here, and we play. But when I wake up in the morning, it's just me here, and I can play, and everyone stays asleep. So I actually could play, conceivably. I could try RPGs again. I would love to do that, actually, to sink my teeth into an RPG, and I've got a few of them. But the story I tell, I think I've told, this is the third episode I've told in a row, about selling my PS1 games for grocery money many years ago. The guy I sold them to, he didn't like RPGs. He was a meathead. You know, God bless him, he was a friend of mine and somebody who I really like and really has my respect, but he didn't like RPGs. They weren't his thing. So I got to keep all of those. So I actually have some pretty valuable role-playing games for the PlayStation 1. In addition, I've got the Dreamcast, and if you've got the Dreamcast in a CDR, you've got the collection. I'm sorry, that's just... I'm sorry, I'm really sorry, because I know some people who listen to the show, Although I'll say this, burning games to the Dreamcast is a huge pain in the butt. I burned, I downloaded an ISO for the Nintendo game Sweet Home, the Famicom game translated into English. Now that's a pretty common reproduction cart to order for the NES, but somebody actually made a Dreamcast version. So not only did I download the ISO, but I also designed a cover for it, and I printed it out. And I was like, this is going to be Sweet Home for the Dreamcast, and it's going to save me $11, because nobody who has anything to do with this game is getting paid on those repro carts. So hey, why not? So I tried burning it a couple times, and it failed both times. Now maybe the ISO is broke, maybe, or who knows, but that's the nature of burning games for your Dreamcast. There's some weird stuff. I've got some pretty marvelous oddities on my Dreamcast because of burning games. But that's, you can't rely on it. It's just something you do. If you want to play games, if you want to play Dreamcast games on your Dreamcast, your best bet is to buy them. I like Dead or Alive. I'm a fanatic for the Dead or Alive series. You better believe I bought Dead or Alive 2 for the Dreamcast. You better believe it, man. So that's that. I don't know how I got here. How did I get here, Sean? I was reading your comment, and now I got talking about the Dreamcast and burning games. And I feel like I backed myself into a corner. Right? We were talking about RPGs. That was it. Yes, RPGs. Oh boy, what happened? What happened? Are we still recording? Yeah. I'm looking at other RPGs I can set for future goals, because there were some that were very, very expensive that have come down and are still somewhat expensive, but, more in that realm of reality, like Dragon Warrior 7. I can never remember if it's called Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest. But I think this particular one, for whatever reason, is still called Dragon Warrior. The PS1 version. That's like $33, $35 now. I would love to buy that. I want that. I want it, man. Oh, I want it. Yeah, so my answer to your question is yes, whatever that question may be. It's always good to hear from you, man. Let's move on to Dumaze. Now, Dumaze has a video of his setup, his gaming setup. And now it's a bit old. Well, not a bit old, but it's 2016, so it's a year old. And he mentioned it in, I can't remember if it was on a previous podcast or in another comment, but I added it to my watch later list. And today I actually sat down and watched it. This is a 21-minute video. It's not a short video, but man, he's got some good stuff, man. Dumaze, I gotta hand it to you. That is 21 minutes. I was glued to my computer screen, dude. It was thoroughly impressive. And something I gotta say, I was always kind of turned off by EverDrives, because if you're gonna this is the way I looked at it. If you're gonna buy an EverDrive and you're gonna put it in your console, you're still just playing ROMs, right? You might as well just do the Raspberry Pi route. Especially since in his video he's got like his Super Nintendo, he's got an EverDrive in there, and he's got some other kind of controller. So it's like, how much of that exactly is original hardware? That we use the word system in reference to consoles because a system is, a functioning machine made up of many parts. I would argue that the majority of the parts in that system are no longer original. So you're playing on the original console, but how much of that? All right, Dumaze, let me put it to you this way, because we'll get to that in a second. But let me put it to you this way: I want to know specifically from you, from a guy who owns 5 different EverDrives, what are some games that you had to own? Not on the EverDrive, but you had to own, even when you knew the EverDrive was an option. Those are the ones I want to know about. Because that video made me think twice about the EverDrives. I really had to consider, maybe this might be a good thing. Because, especially for the TurboGrafx 16, because those games are expensive. And I want a TurboGrafx, but I don't know how I'm going to pay for games. So I'm kind of considering TurboGrafx 16 and then a TG16 EverDrive. I think that might just be my ticket into that world. Which is going to be quite a bit of coin, but we'll see. I don't know. I haven't read comment 1 from Demaze, dude. I'm really sorry. Okay. I can't tell which of these are first. Oh, yes, I can. Okay. He writes, check out Master of Darkness for Sega Master System. It's basically a Castlevania clone, and quite good. Where's my clipboard here? I looked that up. I read this when you left it, and I looked it up. And I wanted to see how much it cost. And what I found was, if you look up Master of Darkness on eBay, what you find is copies of a game called Miracle Warriors for Sega Master System. It's not the same game at all. I don't know why those two searches seem to intersect, but they do. And this Miracle Warriors game looks a lot like a consoleized version of Ultima, so I was digging that. As for your Master of Darkness game, I didn't see that anywhere. I didn't bother looking it up on YouTube or finding a ROM or anything, because I mean, as far as Master System is concerned, right now it's all physical, all legit games for me. But hey, man, Castlevania clone for the Master System sure sounds great. Alright, Double Dragon on Sega Master System has 2 players and looks quite good. Good choice for sure. Thanks, man. If you have a Dreamcast, burn yourself or buy Donald Duck Going Quackers. It's awesome, and it is really much a clone of Crash Bandicoot. Some gameplay style and perspective. Very nice, smooth graphics and good. I will look that up. I want to get myself a copy of Crash Bandicoot. Wow. That sounds like a game I would enjoy, especially right now with my current situation collecting. He also writes, I ordered a physical Raiden 5 for my PS4 Pro that I just bought. Just bought the PS4 Pro last week because I am a professional gamer. Way to go, man! That game looks really, really good. And I'm not in a place where I can get it right now. I'm walking this tightrope, dude. I'm into physical games, and that's what I'm spending my available funds on. And right when I get into them, guess what started today? The Halloween sale on Steam. I divide my Steam games up by the sales that I bought them in, so I can see which ones I've got. Now, the Halloween sales for me are usually a big one. Halloween 2016, I got 8 games. I guess they're not a big one. It's usually, I guess the summer sale is the biggest one. 8 games for 2016. And that's when I got Raiden. I got Raiden 4 at this time last year. And I've put a total of 60 minutes into it. And then the year before that, on Halloween, I got 12 games. And it's the number is only higher because I got all the Painkiller games. And of those, there's a lot of them. I basically bought Painkiller, Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines, and then a couple of tiny games I probably have no intention of ever playing, ever. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can miss the Halloween sale. Who cares? I don't know. I guess summer is the big one. I take it back. But my medal is, excuse me. Oh goodness, my medal's being tested. Dumaze writes, holy crap, Raiden 4 Overkill is 80% off on Steam. Challenge accepted. $3.39 Canadian bucks. Good for you. Get it, dude. Dumaze also writes, WiiWare games to get. They're exclusive WiiWare, not Virtual Console. Get Blaster Master Overdrive, Castlevania Rebirth, Gradius Rebirth, Contra Rebirth, and Star Soldier WiiWare 1. Don't confuse with the TG16 Star Soldier. Get the new WiiWare Wii exclusive Star Soldier. Alright, well, I got my work cut out for me then. He also writes, a word of advice. Any Sega Master System game that has great in the title ain't great. Yeah, you know what? You say that, and Great Baseball isn't great, but it was good enough to hold my attention and get me thinking about it when I was done playing. So it certainly has my respect. And he writes, check out Hitogata Happa Steam Shmup. Super cheap, too, now. You know what? That rings a bell. Let me look it up. I think I might have that already. Hitogata Happa. Yeah, 3 minutes. I have 3 minutes in that game. That game was in... Alright. That game's in a trilogy of games. Alright? Hang on a second. I'm on Steam right now. I'm going to find it. It's the third one of the Gundamonium STG series from the Rockin' Android and Palatine Dispositif. I don't know what that means. Oh, that's the name of the developer. Platine Dispositif, something like that. I don't know. All right, so how do I find the trilogy? It should say somewhere. Yeah, buy the Gundamonium collection. Gundally Gun, Gundamonium Recollection, and Hitogata Happa. Those 3 games. The first one, Gun Deadly Gun. And that's a good game. It's good, dude. Get those games. I thoroughly enjoy them. And yeah, they're right. They're very cheap. A lot of good shmups. This has been a great time for shmups on Steam. And watching Shmuptober. Kaiser's really good Shmuptober series. It's been really, really good. Watch that. Set aside like 60 minutes and just watch every single Shmuptober episode of the year in a block. And let me tell you, if you're a Steam user, you're gonna add some games to your wish list. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. That is gonna happen. And he also writes, you could have bought Sony games with your credit card. The problem was only people who clicked the remember my credit card option. The rest are processed not saves. You know, what are you gonna do? I maybe you're right, but I think I made the best choice I could with the information I had. So you know, yeah. I probably could have bought more, but I don't regret it. I don't regret the things I did. Let's see. That's all from Dumaze. Dumaze, good to hear from you, buddy. Let's see. 206 collection, or collector's edition. Now I'm over at the nextround.net, and the Gaming Beast writes his same comment. He multicast it so that I make sure I can get a copy of it. And we got one from Alex Swingle. He writes, a new challenger appears. I recently bought Raiden 3 and 4 for the Steams. Expect a score attempt to be uploaded in a bit. Briefly read before saying this. Okay, stand by 1 second. I'm going to read this carefully off the air to make sure I get it right. Hang on. All right, here we go. Number 2. In case it wasn't addressed, my mega comment novel was misread a few times, and I'm sorry I had enough of an aggressive comment section that, when misread, caused you grief. It has been hashed out for anyone who is curious what I was smoking during some of those comments. It was sleep-deprived CF. Also, the 193 comment about Morrowind was never read. But I did tell you that privately the week you brought it up, so you probably confused that with on-air reading. Fair enough, my friend. I botched that pretty hard and accept full responsibility. Milk. It was a lot. I gotta say, 193 didn't get read? Did I read that last week? But still had... I don't know. Am I caught up, dude? Just help me out. Am I missing anything else? Because I want to make sure and try and get caught up. Because a lot of stuff was going under the radar, like this whole. I'm gonna head over to Blogger right now, but this whole idea of like an audio comment you mentioned or something. I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting it all rounded up, and then let's see. All right, we're gonna check this just to make sure this, because I think this is the last thing, and then we're gonna be all set. But I'm going to comments. Yeah, we got Gaming Beast. Yes, I did miss one. Look at this. From the 14th. Oh, golly. All right. You know what? We're going to read this. This is from Love Coffee Sega, episode 204. I believe this is from Balzac. He writes, what's up, CF? I felt compelled to write in. Bithead 1000 is the greatest YouTube channel in the history of civilization. I've been caught up for a year now, and I'm thinking of starting over. Not to be a spoiler, but now he's going for a complete NES collection. The stories that guy tells are so nostalgic. I'm with you, getting out the consoles and dusting them off and setting the collection back up. After all that, it's why we do it, right? To show off half the fun. Always keep your head up, stay smiling. Tecmo Balls. Yeah, that's right. This is Balzac. P.S. You have to play Friday the 13th. I've been hooked for months, and they just added a new map. You know what? Did I read this? This feels like I read this already. But you know what? Now that you mention it, Friday the 13th is actually half off now. It's like the first time it's been on sale. So I have a card put away somewhere. I think. I could be wrong about that. I might like to try to give it a try, but it's going to detract from my collecting. the collecting right now, those are the games I'm actually playing. I play computer a little bit, but right now, when I have time, my favorite thing in the world is to sit down on the carpet in front of my TV set and play one of my console games that has been long since neglected. I know I told the story on this episode already, but sitting down early this morning to play Perfect Dark for the very first time in my life was a historic occasion. And I have been thinking about it all day. Quite literally all day. I believe that wraps it up for all of the emails. My sincere apologies if I've overlooked anybody. Please let me know. Because I know that there were sites I didn't check, and I didn't check the email, which I said I check every week. I just missed it. I don't know. But guys, if you're still listening, whatever has brought you here in your life to 1 hour and 27 minutes and 45 seconds into Tiger Claw Radio, thanks for spending time with me. Of all the things you could be doing in the world and all the shows that are out there, podcasts you could be listening to, you've chosen to spend time with me, and I appreciate that. Because time, ladies and gentlemen, time is the greatest currency. Right? And I want you to know that I'm rooting for you. I really am. So the time it takes in this next week, I want you to enjoy it. Because it's a gift. It really is. Have a good week, guys.